What's going on, everybody? Back here from EA Play, it's the post-game podcast. Have another great interview in store for you all. We are here with the senior gameplay producer.
Or just senior producer.
Okay. Of Battlefield 1, Aleksander. Grøndal.
It's good enough.
Good enough? All right, perfect. He's going to be here with us for a little while to talk about Battlefield 1. How are you doing today?
Good. I'm doing great, actually. Feels good to be back at in Los Angeles at EA Play and E3, and always fun to come here and unveil a new game, and for the first time actually having people get their hands on with the game, which is what I'm mostly excited about. Videos is great and all, but having people actually play the game itself, that excites me quite a lot.
Well, even before we get into questions, I gotta say, when I first saw the reveal trailer, at first glance, I was like, there's no way it can be this real. There's just no way. It looked that good. And after playing it this week, it's absolutely eye-dropping. It's stunning to look at. Absolutely beautiful game. Probably one of the best-looking games I've seen, in my lifetime. So, it definitely lives up to the hype in that respect. So,
thank you. That's great to hear. We at DICE always strive to make the best-looking games and always try to make the best possible games that we can potentially make. So, thank you.
So, this is Battlefield's kind of gone back to its roots, even further back to its roots, and going to World War I. So, how has that shift kind of changed the core mechanics of Battlefield, especially in multiplayer?
So, the way that I look at it, so Battlefield 1 is a kind of like a sequel gameplay-wise to Battlefield 4. That's the way we look at it. Even though we turn back the wheels some time on the setting that we chose, we always try to push the kind of first-person genre forward. That's important to us. What we find quite interesting, what really I burn a lot for, is to create new gameplay experiences. That's really what I think that we should be doing as game creators, is give you guys, the players, new experiences to play around. So the way that I feel like this setting really enabled us to create some really unique gameplay experiences, because it does have all the components that we need in a Battlefield game, all the vehicles, it has all the weapons, it has all the locations, all the things. It's just a perfect match. But what it does quite nicely is that, for instance, in the vehicle space, they are all very unique in the way that they are built and constructed, and that allows you to kind of create some new gameplay opportunities. So, like for instance, the Mark V, which is kind of like a medium tank. So this one actually doesn't have a main cannon as the pilot of the thing. It doesn't have a main cannon; it only has like a machine gun. So you actually have to bring two buddies along, one on each side of you, to the left and to the right, and they actually have a 180-degree kind of angle that they can use and fire their guns at. So it's a little bit about communication to be mostly efficient. But if both fires, front guns at the same time, obviously that's really good. And it's a bunch of other unique gameplay twists that we can add to the game. We're adding a little bit more focus around the melee system that we have talked about. What I mean by that is that there was a lot of kind of close combat that took place during this time. It was still kind of a viable option. You had to kind of do it at points. We're kind of adding a bunch of new type of melee weapons that you can use. So, the choice of a melee weapon previously didn't really matter. It basically worked the same every time. The choice of melee weapon kind of matters a little bit more this time around. Not only the way that you take down your enemies, but also what you can use it for. So, for instance, if you have something like a trench mace, it's a really good way to open doors or whatever. So that can be used to crush things. As opposed to a shovel or a hatchet, where it's more of a slicey thing. So that also has a different impact on the world. And another thing that we have added, which is the melee charge, so it's bayonet charge. So these weapons were fixed with bayonets. That allows you to kind of charge up and get some extra speed to get close in on the enemy and hopefully take him down in one fell swoop. Amongst a few that this era allows us to do.
One of my favorite moments this week while playing Battlefield 1 was in one of the matches I was driving in a tank. I was coming up on an objective. There was three opposing members in a building, and it was more of a small house, I guess, but they were in there just taking people out. We couldn't get the objective captured because of it. I'm in this tank. And I'm like, wait a minute, like, you know, they say the destruction's better. Let me just try to drive this tank right through the building. And sure enough, I just rev up my tank, run right into the building, crumble the wall down, kill all 3 people inside without any kind of hesitation. It was fantastic. It was one of my, you know, favorite Battlefield moments, so to speak. Can you speak a little bit just on the, you know, the direction of the destruction and how much work you guys put into it for Battlefield 1?
Yeah, so destruction is hugely important for us in Battlefield in general. We really think it's adds to the dynamic sandbox that we're so proud of. So we're gonna push destruction as far as we can. We actually gotten to the point internally where there is too much destruction.
Wow.
Yes, that's the first time in any game that I've worked on so far that we gotten the feedback that there was too much destruction. There actually needs to be some solid objects left for gameplay to work. And I think that was a good point, because it's always good to dial it up to 11 and then dial it back. The other way around is a bit harder. It's like the audio right now.
Speaking of dial up to 11,
it's like
much louder.
we just got into the club here. No, but the destruction is, so basically we want to make sure that you can destroy as much as possible, but keep kind of some sort of core gameplay loops intact for it to happen. Another thing that, you know, apart from the houses and all the, you know, the physical objects that is man-made in the world, we wanted to kind of also elaborate a little bit on the ground destruction. So, you know, when bombs drop, and they will create from very small to very huge craters, you know, and that creates cover for you. You can dive into them, and I've done this a few times myself. I had a fun moment here the other day, and it was just pure random. It's not really spectacular, but I had a plane flying above. I was trying to shoot it, and they tried to bomb me. So it blew a big hole in the ground right in front of me, and I thought, okay, yeah, maybe I'll drop into the hole. And as I drop into the hole, there's a car that probably had its eye on me to run me over, but he kind of jumped over the hole, so I was sat under the hole.
Wow.
Yeah, so I mean,
awesome.
it's not like a huge explosion or anything spectacular like that, but for me who was playing it, I felt really good when that happened.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
So, one of the other new things that's in Battlefield 1 is kind of like the dynamic weather system and the changing conditions of the battlefield itself. How could players expect to see their experience change based on some of the different weather conditions?
So there's a couple of versions to that. What we want to make sure is that all the weathers have impact to the way that you play. So the simple version of this would be, imagine that you're sat on top of a hill as a sniper. It's clear daylight and it's clear skies. You obviously have a pretty good viewing range at that point. You maybe have found your favorite camping position for those people who indulge themselves in such a gameplay. But for me, who I don't like that too much, I'm super happy when I see the fog come rolling in, because I know that guy now needs to move out and actually find a new position that is much closer to where I'm at. There's no long-range shots being had at that point anymore because of the visual imperative that the fog kind of brings into it. But not only that, you know, if you're flying a plane, for instance, and fog comes in, it's as a tanker, you kind of like, okay, perhaps I don't need to worry about bombing planes as much anymore, unless someone on the ground kind of spots you and you kind of gives you away in the fog. It's also about, you know, when it goes to rain, there's a little bit of sound sound kind of muffles out footsteps, so it's actually a little bit easier to sneak up on people during a rain. And there's some kind of other weather as well, which you guys haven't seen yet, but you know, you could imagine there will be some sort of extreme weather happening as well.
Wow.
That will, I, without going into too much detail, you know, we'll be traveling all over the world with this game. You as a player will be traveling all over the world, and of course there's certain elements that take place in certain locations in the world that we'll also be playing around with a little bit for some unique gameplay opportunities.
So is there going to be like a unique weather like effect for each specific area, or is it going to be, you know, maybe one area has access to wind and fog and rain, and another one has fog and rain, but not, like, how is that going to work?
So that's what I guess I can't really tell you guys right now, but you could imagine, like I said, going to different places in the world would have different types of weather.
Okay,
yeah.
Great.
So that's
that's
as far as I can
We understand.
So one thing, going into Battlefield 1 that I noticed that was drastically different from Battlefield Past was just how the vehicle classes work. I noticed right away hopping into a plane just kind of spawns in. No more trying to run to a plane before somebody else and then somebody gets mad and blows it up.
Yeah.
None of that's happening here. Can you maybe go into detail on the vehicle classes and what went into the design choices you guys made when it came to those?
So there's a couple of reasons why we found that to be an interesting idea. One of the things that we really felt with the vehicle choice that you now have as well, since you can actually deploy in any type of tank, that it's kind of a part of the flow. So okay, I want to be in a tank. Yes, what type of tank do you want? Do you want a light? Do you want a medium? Do you want a heavy tank? And then kind of go in there. And then we felt like you're actually, choosing to play the role of the tank, which we found to be more interesting. You're just not just another soldier that jumps into a tank. You're actually now a tank pilot or whatever it's actually called. I don't know.
Like a specialist.
Yeah. So we wanted you to kind of like, if you wanted to spawn into an airplane or a tank, you should be playing that role specifically. So that's a unique class in itself. It has its own weapons, it has its own gadgets, and it can do more things. However, the fact that we added it doesn't mean like other classes won't have access to vehicles. If you find a tank, you're more than welcome to jump into it in the true Battlefield style. But we wanted you to kind of like, the tank would be the main weapon of the tanker. That's kind of his role. And basically to get you a little bit more into place of the vehicles.
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest improvements I noticed was that you just have a lot less of people going into planes and kamikazing them right into the ground. You just have a lot more people that actually want to be pilots flying the planes, and then they're staying in the air longer. You get real air battles that way. Yeah. I noticed a couple guys overhead of me having like real dogfights, and I just noticed, I was like, wow, I can't remember seeing that in Battlefield 4 as much as I do right now, and I only played a few times. So that's a great change in my opinion. I love
that's good. I'm glad to hear that. That's what we want. We wanted people to kind of stick to being in the vehicles and actually using them actively.
Yep.
So one of the most impressive moments of the Battlefield 1 trailer was the behemoth, which I think in this trailer was like the giant blimp. So how do the behemoths work in Battlefield 1? And then how do you see that affecting like the esports appeal of Battlefield 1, if at all?
So I'll address the first part first then. The behemoths, they work in Conquest like this. So a team that is slightly lagging behind may get reinforced with a behemoth. And in the case of what you guys just played, that's in the form of an airship. There's other behemoths as well. We have the armored train and we have a battleship as well, depending on kind of where you are in the world and what type of map it is. It's a different type of behemoth that kind of plays into it. The way that these things work, so you get reinforced and you can pilot this thing around however you want to go on the map. It's a pretty powerful thing. It has bombs, there's a bunch of guns on it, and it can be quite a dominating kind of presence on the map itself. So if you're on the other side of the behemoth, then you really want to focus your fire and try to take it down, because it can really wreak some havoc. And if you manage, somehow to take it down, it's quite a feat itself. It comes down in a fireball that collapses on the map itself, and if you want to move out of the way, perhaps that's a good thing to do. So we balance it out in the sense that you're supposed to catch up. That's what its purpose is in the Conquest anyway. So it acts a little bit differently in other game modes. Okay. To the second part of your question in regards to the kind of competitive aspect of it, I think the behemoths are more catered towards the large-scale warfare type gameplay, which is not typically what competitive is all about. Competitive is typically about a little bit more fewer players and not 64 necessarily. Right. So I think. I don't know if that if it appeals to esports people or not. I'm not the right person to answer that question. But what we're doing with this is kind of like we're giving this primarily to the players who enjoy the kind of battlefield all-out war type experience. We're buffing that up with the behemoths.
Now, one thing we were told is that players can actually be a part of the behemoths as well. So I know when I played, I saw a behemoth, but we were on the winning team, so I didn't necessarily get a chance to get into it. How does that work where a player will get into the behemoth? Do they spawn in it? How is that added? How does that work?
So for So for the airship in particular, they will typically spawn into it directly from the spawn menu.
And it'll just happen, or you'll choose like behemoth available. I want to be in it.
Exactly. So on the spawn menu, you'll see an icon for the behemoth, and you can kind of deploy right into it.
Okay.
And then you can switch positions around in the behemoth, just like a normal vehicle. You would do the same way. You can get into it if you actually manage to land. Sorry. If you manage to land on top of it or whatever, you jump out of a plane and you land on top of this behemoth, you can also enter it from there.
Wow,
Okay.
that's possible. Wow, okay.
But I mean, that's actually quite tricky. I've been trying to do that a few times myself. Of course, you have to be on the team that owns the behemoth. You can't enter it if you're not. But yeah.
I think I've run my plane into it before, just because it's a big bastard to try to get around. But
It fell on me.
Yeah.
But imagine if you're on a different type of map and there's the other type of behemoth, like the armored train, for instance, then you can just walk right up to it and go into it if it's on your side.
Wow, that's
really
awesome.
Cool. Yeah.
I know you guys didn't talk about this a lot at EA Play, but obviously, there's a lot of our fans that enjoy, single player campaigns. What is kind of the focus for the single player campaign? I know you probably can't give away a lot yet, but sort of what is the experience that people can expect when it comes to your single player?
So what we wanted to do with our campaign this time around is, well, every time I say this, it sounds silly, but what we want to do is to bring more Battlefield into it. Battlefield has been historically a multiplayer franchise. That's how it started. That's the first few iterations of it. So what we want to do is to bring more of that feeling into the campaign. And what I mean by that is adding more vehicle usage, more gadget usage, more openness to it, and more agency to the players on how to solve a certain problem or how they want to address a certain problem, and kind of figure it out themselves and let those Battlefield moments happen in the single player as well. And if you kind of think about that in extension, if you think that, okay, we're adding more Battlefield into it, and then we kind of drew to the next level where we said, like, okay, what does that mean for the structure of our single player? So what that means is that in Battlefield, you're not one soldier, you're always multiple different soldiers in multiple different places in the world. So we kind of announced that thinking. So what you'll be experiencing in our campaign is you'll be playing multiple different characters and exploring multiple different stories in multiple different locations around the world.
That's great.
So that is also a way for us to kind of provide a little bit of a different perspective on the era and on what happened and how the world changed as well as the people changed in this era. So while they are all kind of separated stories, they are also connected thematically in how it plays. So there will be kind of a beginning and an end to the game as well.
That's wonderful.
Great. So one of our favorite games of this summer has been Overwatch. It's a game that's kind of taken the first-person shooter landscape by storm over the last month or so.
Yeah.
One of the biggest things that we like about it is how it kind of directs team composition and team play. What type of things are you all kind of like thinking about for how to maybe add some of that stuff into the Battlefield multiplayer?
So let me just first say, I also play a lot of Overwatch. I'm a huge fan. Sometimes I just want to get in and do a quick match, so I'm here. So it's a great game. It's very different from our game. What we want to do for team play is not necessarily force people into specific roles as much as Overwatch is doing, because I believe that the freedom of Battlefield is to do whatever you want to do, and I think we should keep that. However, we want to incentivize people playing more together and playing the team, playing the objective more. So I don't know if you noticed, but the objective scores is way higher in this game.
I did.
And if you do that, in a squad, you can place out squad orders, and if you manage to complete the squad order in time, there's a huge score bonus to that as well. And we're also adding something we call the persistent squads. So this is basically where you create a squad before you start playing, and then the squad leader can choose to kind of jump from experience to experience together, so make that thing a bit more easy and more accessible for you guys to get to play together. But team play is also kind of core of what Battlefield is all about. We have the classes, and they have very different pros and cons. I think we managed to pull them apart a little bit more in this game than previous games, where there was a lot of overlap. If you think about in Battlefield 4, for instance, the amount of weapons that you could choose for, say, an assault class, you could almost be a sniper, or you could almost be something else because of the shared weapon classes with the DMRs and all that. In this game, we wanted to really try to pull them apart a bit so they could play. They would have more distinct strengths and weaknesses. So we're kind of trying to make the classes more you make the choice of what weapon you bring, but you also make the choice of what class you bring into the game, which is two kind of important choices you make as a player. Instead of just switching the weapon, maybe you did in BF4, where you kind of okay, this seems to be a more long-range map, I'm going to switch to my DMRs, or whatever the longest range weapon you had available to you. So I felt like BF4 was blurring the lines, and if we would have continued down that path, we would essentially remove the need for classes altogether. So we kind of took an opposite direction to this, and we tried to pull them a bit apart instead. I mean, we had a choice. We could go in either direction, and I felt like it was more Battlefield to go in the direction of actually pulling them apart again, a little bit more back to kind of the basics, which we started a little bit when you started talking to me.
Yeah. Great. So one more quick question before we let you go. One of the questions we've been kind of asking all our developers that we're speaking to is if you could define your game in kind of one sentence or one paragraph, what would that be? How would you define Battlefield 1 to our listeners?
That's a good question. When I think about the game, I think about it in two ways. I think about the game as a developer of the game, but also my job is sometimes is also to understand what the perspective is. But I would say it's the most immersive and dynamic Battlefield that we ever built to date, and I really feel it when I play, and I play it a lot, and I still feel like I'm getting sucked into the game. Even though I see a lot of bugs all the time, that's kind of the drawback of being a developer. You kind of only see the negative things in the game and the bugs, which is what they pay me for. Essentially, I get to point out the problems and then I get to try to fix it. That's what I do. No, I get really sucked into this one. I don't think I lose myself in this, and I haven't done that in Battlefield for a while. So if that's just me getting too passionate about it, or if it's actually good, that's up for you to tell me when the game launches, I suppose.
Well, we definitely had a lot of good feelings about it from our time with it here. We have one more day here, so we're definitely going to try to play with it again and see some more of what it has to offer. We thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
We greatly appreciate it. I hope you enjoy the rest of your time here in Los Angeles at EA Play, and thanks for being on.
Best of luck in the future. Thank you.